Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Stepped out behind the house to see the clear sky 2 nights ago. No moon, stars are out and beautiful. Unusually chilly, I turn to get my coat and come back out. Out of the corner of my eye I see a red light flashing in the tree line. I move further out into the yard, over an acre, to see if I can get a better glimpse. Decide I'm going after it, so I go inside to get a coat and come back out with a flashlight. Head deep into the yard with caution as we live next to nearly 100 acres of woodland. Notice deer are in the yard, following me. Head toward the light. As I get closer, a deer family starts circling around me, 3 adults, a few fawns, forming a barrier around my body. Break through the tree line and get into a clearing. See, the red light is now much further than I thought. Notice a second red light blinking a few dozen yards away from it, also near the tree line. Move closer, but see the deer who were following me stop and suddenly stare at the lights. Deer are frozen. I'm frozen. Lights shift. Deer bolt. I bolt. Turn around and see the lights still moving behind me. A third joins them. They are getting closer to our backyard. Turn off the flashlight and stop to stare again. Lights disappear all of a sudden. I can't find them in the trees anymore. One of the lights returns. It is much closer to me this time. Fuck that. Go to bed. Too scared.
I used to spend weeks during summer vacation at my grandparents' in Sugarloaf, California. It's a small town outside of Big Bear in the mountains. It was a fairly tame place. Gray squirrels, chipmunks, blue jays, bobcats and coyotes were the general denizens, along with packs of donkeys that wandered around up there. When I was in college, I decided to spend spring break with my grandfather. He had retired as a baker, and now spent most of his days doing chores around the house and fishing. I figured if I went up, helped him get some of his work around the house done, we could spend most of the trip at the lake catching trout and having some time together. For the most part, that's exactly what we did. I helped him sort his wood, do some work around the house that he needed help with, and picked up the yard. Then we made for the lake and fished. One night, I decided I'd go to the Sugarloafer, a bar up the road. I was 23, decided to have a beer or two, maybe shoot some pool. I walked there, as it was only a mile or so away. On the way there, I could hear a constant sound of something following after me. I thought nothing of it. Perhaps a curious dog or just my imagination. I got to the bar, had a few drinks, danced with a few girls, played pool and some darts. It was a good night. But by the time I was ready to leave, the town outside had become eerily quiet. I exited the bar around 1 a.m. and started my walk home. I was a bit happy from my drinking, so I paid no mind to the quiet at first. The dark didn't bother me either. The sky was clear, the air was crisp. But then I started to hear the sound following me again. This time it wasn't masked by the sound of daily life in Sugarloaf. It was something on the edge of the trees across the road. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear the rustling of leaves. I quickened my pace, knowing it was only about 10 more minutes to my grandparents' house. As my pace quickened, the pace of my shadow quickened as well. I began to get nervous. That's when I saw the shadow of something man-sized dart from tree to tree. I paused for a moment to stare at this abyss in the woods. Then I saw the abyss had eyes to stare back with. I could see 2 bright eyes looking directly at me, locking with mine. I was filled with terror, frozen in place. I could see it rise, getting taller, much taller. It rose up and suddenly its eyes were obscured by branches. The frozen terror broke and I went at a full speed. I heard what sounded like a low growl as I bolted. I ran the entire way to my grandparents' house. I heard the leaves and sticks breaking as the thing pursued me. I got to the door, unlocked it as quickly as I could, and slammed it shut behind me. I locked the door behind me and sank to the floor. My grandparents had passed out in the room in the back, not even roused by me. I sat against the door panting heavily. I had hoped my ordeal was over. Then I heard scratching and scraping at the door. I could hear that strange growl on the other side. My shadow had followed me to the house. My shadow was waiting outside. And I was supposed to be here for another 2 days. I remained sitting still at the door for what seemed like hours, until the sounds stopped outside, and I was sure whatever it was had left. I crawled to the guest room and laid in the bed silently the rest of the night. But my ordeal was not over. The next day I told my grandparents I thought something had followed me from the bar. They told me I was just paranoid and drunk. I went into town that day, trying to take my mind off the previous night. Maybe it was just a drunken delusion. I spent the day at the arcade in town, drove down to Stanfield Cut Off and fished it for bass with my grandfather, a constant eye over my shoulder. After a while I had mostly gotten the thing out of my mind. We headed home with a few fish, happy to have gotten out. We cleaned them at home as usual. The sun setting, we headed inside to watch TV and rest from the day. As night fell, and my grandparents nodded off, I turned the TV to shows of my taste. Then I thought I saw something move outside the window. I stood up, walking to the window, thinking it was a raccoon or a coyote digging through the garbage. Then I saw it. The thing again, that shadow that followed me. It was searching about. I could see the thing slinking from place to place. I ducked to the ground. I got so quiet I could hear a low guttural moan outside. I wanted to close the blinds. But I was terrified to get up. Then I realized the eyes were locked onto me again, and my body tingles in terror again. It had found its way to the window behind the television. Its features are masked behind the glow of the TV. All I could see were those horrible orbs staring at me. I felt as if it were staring into my very soul. It kept the gaze on me, and all I could do was stare back at it through the glass. It made this horrible moan. I thought it was going to burst through the glass at any moment. It kept making that horrible sound. Each time it brought me closer to screaming bloody murder. I was saved by the neighbors, so to speak. As the thing sat behind the glass, masked by the light, I heard the car pull into the neighbor's drive. It broke its gaze, and the form of thing moved from the window. I got up, dropping the blinds on the window, pulling the drapes closed over every window. I ran into my grandparents' room. My grandfather was sitting there wide awake. He asked me if everything was locked up. I told him it was. He asked me if all the blinds were closed. I told him I just did. He got up, came into the living room and sat down across from me. He spoke in a hushed whisper.
"You better go home tomorrow."
After that he gestured me into the guest room. As we got to the room, we both saw the form pass by the kitchen window. My grandfather whispered to me again.
"Go lay down. Don't move. Don't make a sound."
I didn't question him. I went to bed, and laid in terror until dawn. In the morning, my grandparents were very solemn. Neither would say anything to me about what had happened. They acted as if nothing had happened. I caught a nap, packed my things, and they saw me off. As I drove down the street, I passed by the edge of the thicker forest. In it I saw something meld into the trees. I haven't gone back since. My grandfather ended up moving down the hill some years later after my grandmother's death. He told me one day, when we were sitting together,
"Boy, there's things in those hills that people don't want you to know about. There's things that young folk don't understand up there."
I nodded to him.
"Just remember to never look at them kinds of things. They don't like it. They don't want to be seen."
He has since passed away, and I still haven't returned to Sugar Loaf. but we'll never forget those horrible eyes, staring in the dark.
Be camping in Pennsylvania with a friend. By camping, I mean cheating, having a cabin. Stoking fire last night. Lil drunk. Running out of firewood. We hear this awful screech come from about 50 yards into the woods. Just this awful, high-pitched inhuman wail shriek. Sounded like a female zombie alien mutant banshee getting attacked was the only way to describe it. Both what.jpg. However, liquid courage convinces us it's safe to go collect firewood. Grab the comedically named machete, the pig sticker, just in case. Seriously, had the word pig sticker written on the blade. Venture into woods, pitch dark, no flashlights. About 50 yards from the cabin, we both gather up an armful of logs, sticks, etc. We turn our heads back, hear screeching again, but it sounds closer. Both spaghetti everywhere, start booking it down the trail towards the cabin. Friend is black, so of course I'm behind. Bout to get a snagged.jpg. Last stretch of trail before cabin has a 10-foot bridge. Friend misses his footing, trips and falls off bridge into the mini-stream 4 feet below. Legitimately concerned he landed on the pig sticker, but still laughing my ass off. Remember, I'm about to get attacked by a mutant. Run past my friend to the cabin. He made his way to the cabin, said he had to chuck the pig sticker while he fell because he didn't want to land on it. I go with him to the bridge to retrieve the machete and logs he dropped. Feels like we're being watched. Don't hear screeching again. Build fire to epic proportions, get drunk because of fear. Nothing else really happened. We had no idea what the noise was for the rest of the trip, but I learned about a year later that foxes make noises like that sometimes. So probably nothing, but still funny, hilarious at the moment.
I was invited to a country lake house in Maine by the family of my girlfriend at the time, Sophie. Around late June, early July, spent my birthday and Independence Day there having BBQ and riding on a boat. We got into the newspaper that day. So my girlfriend and I know this guy called Scott, who is a mutual friend I met through her friend Ruby. Scott was coming to pick us up in his car and take us out for the night, drinking and shit as teens do in America. The lake house is on the lake, and has a dirt road leading from it towards the main road. It's pretty long and angles upward. It's flanked on either side by woods. The lake house itself is completely solitary. Scott calls my ex while we're standing in the kitchen talking to her mom about tomorrow's events. My ex's sister was coming up from Florida that day and we were all going to surprise her with a gift from the horse stables she learned how to ride at as a kid. Bitch got a Frisian. So anyway, Scott calls her up and lets her know he's at the turnoff waiting for us, where the dirt road meets the main. Bastard doesn't want to drive down, the lazy cunt, so we decide fuck it and make our way up the dirt road. We see him there in his pickup waiting far ahead. Slowly but surely I notice this figure standing in the middle of the dirt road. It's hard to make out though. As we got closer, it looked like a woman dressed in white, with long dark hair to her ass. It was facing towards Scott. I thought it was a trick of the darkness or moon or some shit because the road is literally fucking dark as fuck. Didn't say anything because I didn't want to seem like a pussy. Being from the city, I wasn't sure what I was looking at, so I kept quiet. How would it look if I just noped out of there? As we're about 10 feet away from it, Sophie turns to me and asks,
Do you see that?
I said yes. As soon as I did, we both turned and ran the fuck back to the house. Longest run in my life it felt like. Didn't dare look back, just kept running. Get back into the house. Call Scott and order him to drive down. When he gets down to the house, we ask him if he saw anything. Nah. Told him what we saw, he just laughed it off. Eventually got into the truck and headed up the dirt road. As we're halfway up, there is this loud fucking bang against the side of the passenger door. WTF was that? Was pretty much all our reactions. Scott sped up and we noped the fuck out of there, ended up going to a gas station. When we got out of the pickup there was a massive dent in the door. Scott turns to us and asks,
What the hell did you guys see on the road before I drove down?
Explain everything to him again. He calls his uncle who is a cop, and asks him to meet us at the gas station. He comes and we explain everything to him. He didn't seem surprised at all with anything we were saying. In the end he gave us a warning for underage drinking. Scott wasn't allowed to drive, and we all got into the back of his uncle's cruiser. He took us back to the house, and then left with Scott. Few days go by and we can't get a hold of him on his phone. End up seeing the white woman in the bushes near one of the 2 cabins on the lake house grounds. 3 total buildings. Scared fucking shitless our entire trip. I get chills just thinking about it even today. It happened in 2008. Sorry if it doesn't make much sense. I'm no writer, and I'm pretty tired, not sleeping too well.
Not really creepy forest but pic related is where it happened, UK Manchester. Posted this in another thread but the thread was dead. About 2 years ago I was at a friend's house with my girlfriend, his girlfriend and his cousin, and it got late so I walked my GF home. I cut across a small field to cut the walk by a good 20 minutes. After I dropped my GF home I set off back across the field. Keep in mind it was winter and it was pitch black 10 p.m. As I got to the opening to the field I got a phone call from my friend's GF, we'll call her G, saying her dad had gone missing and to look out for him on the way home. I said okay, put the phone down and continued on like the cocky brave fucker I was. As I got to the top of a little hill about 5 minutes into my walk I heard angry shouting, not casual angry though, mental shouting, the shit you hear in hospitals. He was shouting,
"Where the fuck are you? I'll kill you twats."
I fucking noped it and froze at the top of the hill and phoned G and told her what I heard. She got her mum, brother, boyfriend and BFS cousin to come meet me to help the search, which I never fucking agreed to. I was teamed up with GS big brother to scout the darker parts of the field. In the end we were walking around for a good hour shouting for GS dad every now and then hearing a shout. Eventually I got a phone call from G saying they found him and to gather back on the street. GS dad stood there totally fine saying he went for a walk and didn't hear any shouting, not even us shouting for him. We walked off, turning round every now and then to check on GS dad. After about 4 times of turning round he fucking snapped and screamed at us.
What the fuck are you looking at?
And we all nope.jpg back home. I still don't know what the fuck happened that night and I don't dare delve deeper into it as it fucking terrifies me. Red to the right is where we eventually found him, blue is where I first heard him.
Be about 10 or 11. Live next to the woods. Spend most of my days wandering in it, talking to myself, playing. There was this condo complex, a house that also had woods behind it, up on a hill. I'd usually play in my backyard, go across the neighbor's yard which was like a field, and go up the hill and play behind there. One day I'm walking across the field and look up. There's someone standing on top of the hill, behind the trees, looking down at me. No one is ever behind there, it's like he's waiting for me. I think it's a guy. He's got jeans and a gray hoodie on, with the hood up, and I can see greasy black hair coming out of the hood, and he's really pale. Stare up at him, he's completely motionless. Starting to get scared. My mom watched a lot of crime dramas and stuff like that, so it made me a little paranoid. I run back home and don't play back there again.
I used to live in Dolly, a small town within the borough of Telford in the West Midlands, UK. I was 8 at the time this happened. I lived within a 2-minute walk to the woods. Me and my childhood friend Frankie, who lived a few doors down from me, decided that the best place to play football was the grass field next to the woods, so I agreed and we went to play football. After around 20 minutes of football, we got bored and I came up with the genius idea of making a secret den in the woods. We began walking into the woods, which we had been in many times. We decided that we should go to the part of the woods we hadn't been to before. We walked along one of the dirt tracks and stopped to climb a small tree which didn't have much of a trunk. It had large branches stemming out at around a foot high. After getting bored again, we started walking deeper into the part we hadn't been in before. There was a sudden drop into a small crater. Intrigued, I walked round the drop to a dirt path that connected to the bottom of the crater. There were some sort of stone foundations, like a wall. At the bottom of the wall, I noticed something orange. I approached it and realized that it was a fox pelt. It was pretty cool. It was the first dead animal I had ever seen, so I called my friend down. He walked round the drop to the dirt path, the same way I did. When he got to the bottom, he told me he heard some metal screeching coming from further down the dirt path. I didn't really care, though. I was more fascinated by this dead fox in front of me. I picked up a stick and started poking the torso of the fox. Don't ask, we all do stupid stuff when we're little. The last time I poked it, the pelt rolled over. I froze. Frankie froze. We turned and faced each other with fright in our eyes. It was a skull, a human skull. We grabbed the football and ran back to his house. His 17-year-old brother was the only person in the house. After calming down, we asked him about the big dip in the woodses as we called it back then. He told us it was called the witch's parlor, and that back in the 1500s and 1600s witches used to take refuge in the woods when being hunted. 9 years later, I added my childhood friend on Facebook. We started talking and got on really well because he told me that he had been smoking weed for 2 years and at the time, I smoked weed as well. He asked to meet up, so we did and decided that I would sleep at his house, the same house which just a few doors down from my old house. We got stoned, played on his Xbox 360 and started having a childhood memory talk. I brought up the skull under the pelt and he said he remembered. He told me that he had a nightmare the same night that we went to the witch's parlor. He explained his nightmare was us walking the same route into the woods, but there was a third person. He described the person as a pure black shadow figure with no face, eyes, mouth or ears. After the pelt had rolled over, he said the shadow figure's face suddenly turned into a horrifying pure white face, with pitch black eyes, burnt lips. It began screaming in what he could only describe as a distorted cat screech. That was when he woke up.
B17. Planning a bonfire with some friends, and some friends' friends. Bonfire set in the middle of an apartment complex. It's like a brick fire barbecue thing. Start the fire when the sun goes down. Cop who lives nearby comes and tells us to go home because we're making too much noise. Fuck it. Last week of summer, we're going to have this fucking bonfire. Move it to the woods. Familiar place, I've been there before. Good times begin. Friend Z is pretty drunk.
Anon, I need to piss, come watch my back.
What?
Come on.
Didn't really think, but kind of wanted to get away from the crowd for a bit. Social anxiety and shit, you know what's up. Friend leads me out pretty far, towards a creek. Takes like 5 fucking minutes to piss. Return to the fire pit. Everyone's gone. Hear someone is running a distance away. I yell, hello? The running stops. Nope.jpg. Manage to make our way out of the woods. Get a call from friend S right as we started to come out of the woods.
Did you guys make it out okay?
He sounds kind of scared. I say, yeah. Why didn't you tell us you guys were leaving? Apparently there was some crazy half-naked dude roaming the woods that tried to drink all their beer, and when he pulled a knife on them they all bolted. It was just scary as fuck knowing that we were out there alone with him lurking the woods. Never go back to the woods at night ever again. I've got another story all Greentext for ya. Events here took place a little bit before Crazy Beer Dude. B15? Be an obnoxious adolescent stoner. Smoking a bowl in the woods with friends Z and S and girlfriend A. At a different place as before. But same friends. Hugh dude, look how high I am. Was actually pretty high to be fair. See a guy with a golf club in a small clearing behind us. Looks like he's looking for something. GF says her sister knows him or something. Sketched out the whole day. Could have been the weed, but something wasn't right about this dude. News report comes on the next day. Says a dude went missing. Last seen near the apartment complex we were at that day. Ask girlfriend to turn on the news. It was the golf club guy. A couple days later, his body was found about half a mile in woods from where we were. He had been beaten to death with a golf club. What? They never found the guy who did it. Was it the Crazy Beer Dude? I guess I'll never know. My face when I still live about a quarter mile from those woods. And the last one I have of those woods. Be about 2 years ago. B19. Friend B and I are building a little shack in the woods. A fair bits away from where the murder happened, but still connected. Cutting down trees and shit, and putting up tarps and shit, and digging holes and shit. After about a month it's finally done. Only go there for campfires, and since B still lives with his folks, all his friends and him always go there to drink, smoke weed or whatever teens are doing these days. Get a call from B one day.
You aren't going to fucking believe this.
Apparently he was porking his girl in the little shack we made, and when a crazy dude with a knife tried to attack his girlfriend, B, being a certified badass, quickly got his knife from his pants and stabbed him. Cops do their job. He lives. Gets sent to prison some time later. We all come to the conclusion that it was Crazy Beer Dude. B ends up moving in with me. Every last week of summer break from school, college we go out to the pit and toast one off to Crazy Beer Dude. Some nights we can still hear him, howling in the wind, brandishing his knife, and sipping on that oh so flavorful Heineken.
Wife asks me to go camping. Hate the idea. She is excited though. Sure, why not? We drive to a secluded bit of land her grandparents own. Spend hours setting up the tent and campsite. We get ready. Go hiking. It rains a little. We get a little wet. We double back. Get back just as it gets dark. Make a fire. The wife is getting a little low energy. We eat and talk for a while. Decide to go to sleep. Inflatable mattress. Double sleeping bag. We get in together. She is shivering. Ask if she is okay. I'm fine. She keeps shivering. I don't feel good. You said you were fine. I don't want to ruin our trip. Oh boy, we get to go home. Feel her face. She's pretty hot. Well, it won't be any fun if you don't feel well. I think you may have a fever. I guess. Let's go home. Get up and get her to the car. Start it and turn on the heat. Start packing up our stuff. In the tent, deflating the mattress. The horn beeps. I ran out and over to the car. She said there was someone around our camp. Said they were crawling. As soon as she saw them move and was sure it was someone, she beeped the horn. Can tell she is upset. Don't believe her though. Tell her to relax and go back to packing. Gather everything outside the tent. Step back in to roll up the mattress. Hear her yell my name. Sounded like it came from the woods. Why is she outside the car?
Help X, my leg is bleeding.
Rush out. Glance at the car. She is asleep in the seat. Wave of fear. Hear something yell again.
Help me.
Still sounded like her but somewhat off. Too raspy and deep. Take down the tent. Just roll it up. Shove it in the car. Left a few things. Got the fuck out of there. Driving a little fast. Wake wife up and have her put her seatbelt on. Get home and ask her to tell me what she saw. She said it was white, thought it was a naked person crawling behind some trees. She saw them stand up against the tree and she beeped the horn and they dropped down and ran.
On a hike one day, roaming through the Peak District, UK, by myself. Quite late in the summer evening, was planning on setting up a small camp for the night somewhere close by. Scour the horizon for good forested spots. Great for shelter from wind. Suddenly hearing something shift behind me. It's a deer. Throw a twig at it in frustration for making me jump, it runs away. Head for the woods across a grassy meadow, making sure to keep my eye out for any ditches in the grass. My mate broke his leg in a deep hole in the past. Notice something writhing in the grass up ahead. Wildlife ecologist, so I head over to make sure it isn't a distressed animal trapped in something. Suddenly, it bolts, probably a fox. I make it to the tree line, start feeling a little off, like something is watching me. Very dark now. I need to set up camp no matter what. As I'm setting up, a guy comes charging through the fucking bushes screaming something about a big dog up ahead. It had bit him in the leg, was bleeding bad. I offer to patch him up, let him stay with me for the night. He's a cool guy, we share stories, and have a few beers I brought along. Midway through the night I wake up to find him leaving the camp. Says he needs to check on something he heard. Never comes back. I freak the fuck out. Head hurts due to beer and no sleep. So I put my head down for a second, get up. Something catches my eye from under a nearby log. Fucking human skull. Packed up my small tent. Fucking ran for my life.
Living in northern Saskatchewan, Canada. Be about 14. We live way the fuck up north. Be chillin' with friends on the farm. Decide to explore the forest towards the northeast. Never went too far into it 'cause bears and shit. Walk through for about 2 to 3 hours token ganja and whatnot. We see a few rectangular buildings through the trees. Logging equipment around. There's 3 main buildings. All have boards on the doors except one. Go into an unboarded building. Go right into the hallway. There's a lit candle at the end in the corner. Start shitting them. We still go on. There's an opening to our left. On the floor there's a hand sticking out from behind the wall. Holy shit.jpg. We both freeze up. The hands start twitching and convulsing. We bolt the fuck out of there. We hear a high-pitched blood-curdling scream behind us. Run for another 10 or so minutes. Never talk about it again. Alright, this one deals with fucking natives OMG, and I mean like really natives. Be about 19. Still living in northern Sask. One night I'm sitting out on the porch with my drinking and shit. See someone driving a truck at the end of our property. We have no neighbors. WTF.jpg, we live like 40 kilometers from the nearest house. They drive into the woods on our dirt road. We get shotguns and shit. They don't approach us. They just go into the woods. Dad tells me that it's native shamans or a cult. Whatever, Dad, you're hammered. The next morning he tells me that they sometimes go in there for God knows what. Grandpa tells me he has seen them around a campfire and they used to steal our livestock. The next day I took the quad and a rifle to see what they were doing on our land. Follow the fresh tracks in mud for about 5 kilometers. Found where they stopped. Fucking blood all over everything. To my left was a couple dead chickens. And on a big rock in the center of the little clearing was one of our cows. It's been gutted, intestines hanging out and shit. It's still alive. Shot in the head. There's other animal parts around and shit. Immediately called the cops. They tell me they know about this shit. To this day we still see them sometimes, and I have shot at their vehicles on multiple occasions now.
B12. On holiday way up north in Finnish Lapland. Early spring camos, so no sun even in the daytime. Be adventuring around along a snowmobile track leading from our cottage to who knows where. As long as you stay on it, you can go as far as you like. Wise advice for a 12-year-old, pops. Walk along until night falls. Pitch fucking black, snow-covered fir trees all around like it's people standing motionless, staring at you. Start to hear crying. Actual, little baby crying, with sobs and all. Nope. The crying rises to a wail, turns into a full-on female scream for 2 seconds, then back to sobbing and little baby crying. Crying starts to approach. Too scared to move or look around to find the silhouette of whoever is crying among the trees. Crouch there shitting your pants for what feels like hours, slowly freezing your ass. Crying continues all the while, sometimes close by, sometimes farther away in the woods. While crouching, remember reading about liekkios in some old book on old Finnish folklore. They are the souls of the unwanted babies whose mothers had them in the woods and either left them there to die or murdered them outright. They are left to forever cry in the woods and tempt unsuspecting people into getting lost. Eventually realize you'll soon be too frozen to make your way back to the cottage at all, so hopeless dash turned into panicked shambling, following the snowmobile track, not looking up. Crying fucking follows me. Get to cottage, don't tell anyone. Eventually calm down, go upstairs to go to sleep. Hear the creature start crying again outside beneath your window. Turns out, of course, it was a fox calling in early spring heat, and one of the bastard ones who've learned to follow people in hopes of scraps because of stupid tourists. Thank you, fox, for my still continuing fear of starting to hear crying whenever I'm alone in the woods.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.